Welcome to episode 104 of Coffee & Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So, today we thought we'd talk about reading slumps.
Yes, the bane of my existence.
Yes, and there's so many different kinds of reading slumps. I kind of feel like we both were in one at the same time recently, and you've taken yourself out of it, and I'm still in it. But, so this reading slump we're in is, or that you are now out of, is Crescent City. The third book just came out, super highly anticipated, waited for 2 years. Oh my god, we have to get it. We get it. We got to chapter 30, and we both stopped.
31, actually.
Okay, yes. Yeah, but we both stopped around the same part, and I don't really know why. It's just such an undertaking, that book. But I'm stuck. I know I just need to pick it up and read it, but... And then I feel guilty reading anything else, because I'm like, I gotta read that, and then I don't want to go on social media, because I'm like, what if I get a spoiler? There's a lot to a reading slump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't really, understand them either, because I did pick up the book again yesterday. I am enjoying it. I did get past that part. And, I'm at a point now where I'm getting answers for things, and, I'm solving mysteries, so, it is, it is a good book, I am liking it, so I don't really understand why because same thing happened with me with Iron Flame, and I still haven't finished that.
I know, that blows my brain.
And, and it's not that I wasn't enjoying it. I just put it down, and I just could not pick it back up.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know if it's a case, I don't know. I wish I understood it more, why I get in these slumps. Because then, if I'm in the mood for something, quick and dirty, I will 100%. It's not that I'm in a reading slump.
Mm-hmm.
It's just certain books I just, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm completely in a reading slump. If I'm not reading that, I would feel too guilty reading something else, because I have the anxiety of, what if you see a spoiler? If you're going to read something, it has to be this. So then I just don't read anything, and then I feel shittier. So, but yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's that, Kingdom of Ash. Kingdom of Ash came out, and I devoured that book in minutes, because I was like, I need this. It doesn't matter if it ends good, bad, bloody, ugly. I need it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really have that connection with Crescent City, I don't think. And, I don't know if the beginning's just, not what I was expecting, and I get to certain parts of it, and I'm like, oh my god, what's gonna happen now? I can't keep going. What's gonna happen to the people I love in this book?
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe it's all just anxiety, which is kind of what it seems like, but it's annoying.
But, sometimes, and for me, too, part of it is, I have a lot of hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We do this. I like to, put things together, whether it's, puzzles or Legos or little models of things. I have one of those Book Nook, little model-y things that's adorable. So, I like putting things together. I also like reading. I also like watching videos, and watching TV. I also, have stuff I need to do, whether it's editing for this, whether it's master's work, whether it's planning for school.
Yeah.
I feel like I have so much to do that sometimes, reading is, I don't have time to do it.
Yeah. No, that makes
So
sense.
then the more I don't have time for it, the more out of it I get.
Yeah. It's hard with a book like this too because it is so long between them. And the need to just like devour it and get it done and like have it done is kind of a bit much. It's like 2 years since her last book, and now most people finish that, like, not most people, but a lot of people finish Crescent City 3 in like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same thing with like Iron Flame. Like people finished that immediately, and it like when we were kids, it was the same thing with Harry Potter, and it'd be like a year before the next one. But I don't know. I don't know if I want to drag it out longer, or like if I'm worried that I'll be, maybe it's all just like being afraid that the ending will be terrible, and then what? Then you gotta wait another, you're gonna have to wait another 2 years before another book comes out by her. So it's like, if you finish it, it's the Iron Flame thing. Like, if you finish Iron Flame, we don't know when we're getting another book, and that book doesn't end on the best note. So yeah, I don't know, reading slumps are annoying, and reading is one of the like hobbies I have that I feel like is productive, I guess. Like, that's not really the right word, but it doesn't feel like a waste of time, which, like, no hobby should feel like a waste of time, but some of them were ingrained as better than others, and reading is one of those ones that, like, when I'm not reading, I feel like a piece of shit. So, I don't know. It's also winter, and the whole sads are on the go, so it's a hard time of year.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where like both of us I think identify so much with being a reader.
Mm-hmm.
So like admitting to reading slumps is sort of like, ooh, you know what I mean? It just feels like something that we shouldn't, like, oh, if you're such a bookworm, if you're such a reader, like, you shouldn't get reading slumps.
Yeah.
But, like, I do.
Yeah. And it's obviously, like, you're not adding to your book, like, how many books you've read this year if you're in a reading slump. Like, and then the longer it goes on, the more anxious you feel about that part. And, like, I think for me, it's really coming down a lot to anxiety based solely on what I'm talking about now. But it can be annoying. And I'm also afraid, like, once I finish the Crescent City 3 book, I'm going to get into a reading slump because I'm going to be like, shit, now I need to wait another 2 years for anything from her. And then what am I going to read?
Yeah.
So, and part to counteract, I guess, I have started listening to Throne of Glass again. The audiobooks from the beginning. And, like, I count audiobooks as reading, but for some reason, the Throne of Glass ones, I'm just like, it's just listening. It's just because I know them so well, I listen to them so often that I'm like, it's not the same. It's like a comfort. And, like, I have comfort reads too, but this is like a comfort listen. So I'm like, it's not the same as reading. But realistically, like, I listened to all of Crown of Midnight in the last week. So, like, I'm not really in a slump, but I feel like I very much am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I know. Yeah. I've only got 4 books. I've only according to Goodreads, I've only read 4 books so far this year.
Yeah.
It'll be 5 once I read Crescent City. Like, it's not that many.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I'll get out of the slump and I'll read a whole bunch, and then I'll go back in a slump, and then I won't read as many, and it's just a vicious cycle.
It is. It's really up and down. And, like, I think I'm around the same amount, and, like, part of my issue now is, like, it's been so long since I've read a physical book, because the last book I put in quotation marks I read was a giant Hermione Draco fan fiction. So I'm like, that wasn't a book either. It's on Storygraph, so I did add it as a book that I've read. But I don't know. But I'm the same. I've only read like 5 books this year so far. Maybe even less. And it's like 2 of them obviously are our podcast books. Because we finished our book this week. So yeah, slumps are interesting. I'll say that.
They are. But no shame.
No.
We don't shame on the reading slumps because we get them.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we're just gonna get right into our last week with Divine Rivals. So just a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone and things might get saucy. So, it's our last week. We're going to be reading the end of Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This week we are starting at chapter 36 and going all the way to the finish line. So last week, Roman and Iris sort of get into a little bit of trouble. They're at the front lines. There is an attack, and Roman gets hurt. And they both end up getting rescued, and Iris finally figures out that Roman is Carver, aka like her mysterious typewriter pen pal. She's pissed about it at first, but then she realizes that she loves him, and things go from 0 to 60 real fast.
Yeah, very quickly. She's just like, nah.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I love you.
Very, very quickly they go from like, I have feelings for you to I love you, and very quickly mention marriage. And yeah. So, this week we start with them being in the garden together where Iris sort of suggested he propose. And it's just so weird, like, you're suggesting a proposal. It just, like, I don't know. Wouldn't you want it to be, like, a surprise? Or wouldn't you want it to be spontaneous? Or for him to decide on his own? Like, I just feel like she suggests a proposal and then sort of takes it. Like, it doesn't feel like, not that it has to be his idea or anything like that. And not that the woman can't propose to the dude or anything. But, like, he literally has one comment. And then she's like, are you proposing? And he's like, it's almost like, oh, maybe I should. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's a product of the time it's trying to be. Like, it's trying to be historical. It's trying to be like, you don't kiss somebody unless you're married to them. Like, that's what the book is trying to be set in, like, that kind of time period. So I kind of am like, I give that a tiny bit of leeway in the, like, they aren't allowed to touch each other, love each other, be with each other without being married. So that's kind of why I'm like, I can see why they're bringing up the marriage thing and why she's bringing it up. But it does, it's very out of left field. It's very much like, wait, what? Marriage now?
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so like, they're in the garden together, and Iris is thinking that there are things that she needs to say to Roman before he asks her to marry him. And she tells him that. She's like, we've have a few things left unsaid, so I need to tell you. And she said that, like, a few days ago, she walked into his hospital room, and, like, there were some things that she didn't say, and she waited a few days to see him again because she was trying to guard herself and put her walls back up, put her armor back on, as she likes to say, because that's sort of the metaphor that they've been using. But she realizes after everything they saw at the trenches that anything can happen and futures aren't certain, so she needs to tell him this. So what she feels that she needs to tell him is that Carver is important to her because he was there for her at a dark moment. But she was too conflicted. But she was conflicted when Roman came to Avalon's Bluff because she had feelings for him too. So a lot of her sort of discomfort lies in the fact that she had feelings for both Roman and Carver, not realizing they were the same person.
Which we kind of talked about this a lot last week, of the, like, she's very conflicted even though they're both the same person. And, like, obviously she didn't know when we were talking about it before, it was about her not knowing. But yeah, we did talk about it a bit last week.
Yeah. So her idea and her proposition to Roman is to bring the two people together as one person in her mind and in her heart. She wants him to read the last letter he wrote to her out loud. So Carver's words, his voice, she's hoping that will combine the two characters in her brain and make them one person. And, like, I didn't include a lot of, they flirt a whole bunch as he's reading because, you know, young love, I guess. Like, why not?
Yeah.
You know, it's just sort of a little like, it feels a little repetitive, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But,
well, yeah, we already got this letter. It took
twice.
Fucking forever, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like the beginning, we probably even got like 3 times because we read it the first time, and then she had to find her way in the letter the second time she was reading, then the third time, and then it's like, yeah. And now this, I think, is like the 4th time she's with the same letter.
Yeah. So she let him read until he gets to the I love you part. So, like, all he does is say, like, the part where he confesses his love for her. And then as soon as he reads that, she's like, whoop, takes the letter back.
Mm-mm.
And, like, then she gets, like, right up close to him, like, nestles in between his legs because he's sitting, because his leg is hurt. And they kiss. And when they stop kissing, he asks her to marry him, and she obviously says yes, and then they kiss some more. And then they decide they're going to get married that afternoon, because they don't know what's going to happen in the future, and, like, you know, they're in a war, man.
Yeah.
And she really wants to get married, but she's nervous because she's a virgin. And she actually straight up tells him, like, no shame at all. She's like, I've never been with anyone before. And, like, I know a lot of times you and I sort of, like, eye roll at the virgin trope.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's never been with anyone before, and it's a magical, like, it's the best sex ever. And, you know, I do sort of have feelings about their romantic trysts.
Mm-hmm.
But, refreshingly, he is also a virgin.
Yes.
So, like, I appreciate that he's not some, like, rich player
Rake.
that's... Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I appreciate that about him.
Yeah.
And then he actually tells her that if she isn't ready for that, they can wait.
Yes.
Which is cute.
I do love that. I don't mind the virgin trope as much in historical-ish fiction, and especially, like, when they are younger. I don't know. I guess the only one I can really think of hating it so much was Persephone. And I just found that annoying. But, like, I didn't mind it so much here, because I was like, yeah, that makes sense. This is, like, more of a historical, you need to get married before you can do anything, which I know wasn't the case for a lot of people anyway, but it was more so, it was probably the case for more people than it is for now. So, like, I give it a bit of a pass.
Yeah, I just, like, my issue is, like, it's always, like, why is the girl always the virgin?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And
that's
the man
my
is
problem
super experienced.
Yeah.
That, I hate that part. But yeah, I like that he also is like, yeah, me too. I'm waiting for marriage. Like, that is what, yeah.
Anyway, so, like, after he makes that, like, you know, if you want to wait, we can wait. She says, like, no, I don't want to wait. She says she wants to experience it with him. Like, she was just, I don't know, maybe a little, like, just letting him know that she's not experienced. He insinuates that he wants to get Marisol and Addie's approval. And right now, both of them are at the infirmary working, so they have to wait until they get home to ask. So they decide they're going to set up their typewriters in the kitchen and do some work together. Instead of being rivals, they're going to try and help each other with their articles, which is cute.
It is cute.
It's just, like, all of this is very cutesy, very happy, like, there's no fighting, like, and I understand that that's sort of YA, like, you know what I mean? But I wish there was a little bit of, like, it's just not realistic for a relationship.
Yeah.
To have no disagreements, to, like, for everything to be perfect and fine, and, like, especially in a stressful situation like this, it's like, as soon as they admit they love each other, like, everything is happy and everything is, like, perfect.
Yeah, and it's also, like, they started as rivals, so there still has to be some conflicting emotion somewhere. Like, you don't just say, you can't just let go of all of that immediately. Like, you have to work through some of that. Like, that's not just, no, not rivals anymore.
Yeah.
We're still working for the same paper on the same thing, and you could get it over me. You could get a better spot, or you could
the
write
front
a better
page, like,
yeah. So it is odd. I've also found something I find odd in this entire book is that there were no correspondence there before Addie and Iris showed up. Like, where are the other correspondents?
I guess nobody else took the paper up on it. But, like, who wrote that article about the Ethereals?
Yeah, and then who, like, why did Addie pick the exact same day as Iris to go? Like, it's odd.
Very coincidental.
I just don't really understand why that choice was made. Like, did the author not want more characters around or something? Like, that, I guess. Like, anyway, I just found it odd. That's completely unrelated. But.
Yeah. Anyway, so, like, Iris sort of mentions that, mentions to us as readers that both of them sort of struggle writing about the attack, but they get into a groove and they manage, and they're constantly flirting, and it's real cute, and she makes him some tea, and is like, oh, there's a fee for all this tea I'm making you, and she's like, maybe you'll massage my feet or do my laundry or something like that. And, like, he's like, I do all of that happily for the rest of my life. And I'm like, ugh.
This is not it.
No. Ugh. Anyway, so then she's, like, happy for a minute, but then she thinks about the war and how many people have died, and then she's like, oh, I don't deserve to be this happy. And then Roman's like, the world needs joy as much as it needs pain, and you're worthy of love, and I'm not going anywhere unless she tells him to leave. And they're just like, it's slightly vomit inducing.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, so then he starts making her a cup of tea when they hear a siren. And we spoke about sirens in week 2, about, like, what they all mean. So a steady one during the day means hounds. Steady one at night means ethereals. One that is constantly going beep, 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 an intermittent one, any time of day or night, that's the evacuation siren. And then, so that's what they hear. The evacuation siren. And all of a sudden, some stranger bursts into the kitchen, demanding to know where Marisol is. And I guess Iris puts it together that this is Marisol's wife, Keegan. And she's like, "Where's Marisol?" And Iris is like, "She's at the infirmary." And she's like, "Do we have to evacuate now?" And Keegan's like, "Yep." And explains that Dacre is on his way to assault Clover Hill, where the sirens, like, that's the place where the sirens come from. And they don't have enough soldiers to defend it, so they assume that as soon as he's done with Clover Hill, he's going to move on to Avalon's Bluff. And Keegan says, like, she's evacuating everybody, but anybody that wants to stay to defend the town, like, she's asking.
Yeah.
So Keegan sort of orders Roman to get the evacuation bags. I don't remember what they're called. The
grab packs or something.
Something packs. And orders Iris to come with her to the infirmary. So they're like running down the road, and I guess she asks what Iris's name is, and Iris tells her, "My name is Iris Winnow," and she stumbles and sort of like reveals something on her face, like she recognizes the name Winnow, and so she's like, so that makes us think like maybe she knows who Forrest is, right? But we don't get any more at that moment because Keegan is just like racing to get to the infirmary. So they get there, she finds Marisol, they have a nice like reunion moment, but then they argue because Keegan wants Marisol to evacuate, but Marisol refuses because she's like, "This is my home, I'm not leaving it, and I'm not leaving you." And Addie agrees that like she wants to stay and help too, and I'm like, why? Like, and maybe this just shows what a terrible person I am, but like, Addie is not, and Marisol, they are not soldiers. Like,
yeah,
I would feel like I would be getting in the way.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be helpful.
Yeah, I don't really know, other than, I guess, helping injured people, but then if you're there and you're more likely to get injured because you don't know what you're doing, so, like, how are you going to help other people?
And, like, and I don't understand the point. Like, if they know that Clover Hill doesn't have enough soldiers to defend it, do they honestly think they have enough soldiers to defend it? To defend Avalon's Bluff?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's very, like, why? Like, why stay to defend the town at all? Like, everybody should leave, soldiers included. Like, find a bigger station of soldiers, a battalion or something, so that you could make a stand somewhere else. Like, to me, that just seems like a colossal waste of life to try and defend a town that you know you cannot defend.
Yeah.
And, like, she's asking people to stick around to defend the town. Just to me, it seems like you're asking people to die.
Yeah. And, like, I guess, obviously it's hard to leave your home and the place that you grew up and stuff, but I agree. If you're like, we need to evacuate everyone, but we're going to leave an even smaller amount of people here to die. Yeah.
And, like, they had so many soldiers on the front, and, like, so many of them died. So now they have, like, an extra small force, and they're like, we can do it. It's like, no, you can't. Like, common sense here, people. Like, have a bit of strategy. Anyway. So, yeah. So, Marisol's like, this is my home. I'm gonna stay and defend it. Addie, for some reason, is like, I'll stay, too, and defend it, even though it's not her home. And they've been there for, like, 2 weeks. Maybe 3.
Yep.
And Iris
it's
also...
the right thing to do.
It is the... Yeah, God. Anyway. Iris also, like, has an... Like, she has the urge to stay, but with Roman's injury, she knows he shouldn't stay because he's a liability and he can't help. Yeah. So because... And she knows he won't evacuate without her. So she says to everyone, like, I would like to stay, but with Roman's injury, I don't think I can. And everyone sort of agrees. Yes, absolutely, evacuate. And, like, no one puts
because,
pressure on her to stay.
Yeah, like, he can't stay here. He's got trouble walking. How is he gonna be able to be helpful?
Yeah.
He needs to help himself before he can help others.
Yeah, that whole put your breathing mask on before you help anyone else. Yeah. Anyway, so Keegan then pulls a letter out of her pocket and tells her it was sorted with her mail, but it's actually for Iris. And she says because they're both addressed, they both have Avalon's Bluff, like, on it, so for some reason they gave it to Keegan, even though Iris Winnow and Keegan, the names are not the same at all.
Yeah.
Anyway. But the letter was from, like, someone high up in the military, updating her about Forrest. So apparently he was fighting in the 2nd Battalion and was wounded at the Battle of Lucia River and brought to the town of Maria to heal. And apparently she wasn't informed because Forrest's captain was one of the casualties of the battle. 2 weeks later, Maria was attacked, but Forrest was evacuated in time. He was given the chance to heal, and then he was actually incorporated into a new battalion and was still somewhere fighting for Emba. So then she asks Keegan where Maria is, and it turns out it's only 80 kilometers away from their current town. And then she's like, she thinks to herself, like, if Roman could be nearby, this changes everything. And I don't understand why that matters. Like, I don't understand why her being like, he was 80 kilometers away, but was evacuated.
Yeah.
Like, and then, like, reincorporated somewhere to fight. He could have been shipped anywhere.
I guess, is this the only front line? Like, I don't know that. I can't imagine, or somebody would have known Forrest when she was on the front, I don't understand.
Yeah, I also don't understand, because the way they sort of insinuate it is it seems like there's, like, fighting everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in that area. So, not in that area, but, like, wherever. Are they in the south? Are they in the east? Where are they?
They're not in the east, because that's where she's from, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah, she's from the east. They're like, in the middle. I don't know if that's right. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, so yeah, I don't, and, like, even if he was in the area, how does she know that he wasn't, if he was, like, reincorporated into another battalion, like, how does she know he's not one of the dead from the front? Like, so many of them were killed, and there's not going to be a way for them to inform all of the families, like...
Yeah.
I feel like her reasoning was stretchy.
Yeah, it's also... This letter is interesting, because I kind of forgot the exact wording, and then when we hear later, it's contradictory to what this is. But that's not really the point at the moment. The fact that he was evacuated from 80 kilometers away doesn't mean anything.
No!
I think that's the biggest point, and, like, you just said it, but, like, I agree. Like, you'd think that before this information, she'd be like, oh, Forrest is fighting on the front. There's just as much chance that he'll come back during this attack than if he was evacuated from 80 kilometers away. You'd think that this wouldn't change anything.
Yes.
Because, yeah. Okay. We're there.
But, so this reasoning feels flimsy to me. Like, it feels like, how can I make it so that she sticks around for a bad reason?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it just seems too flimsy for me.
Yes.
Anyway, so she's like, I need to speak to Roman. So she goes back to where he is, and he's, like, outside helping neighbors load up their cars and trucks with their belongings. So she shows him the letter she got and tells him that there's a chance that Forrest might be coming to Avalon's Bluff to defend it. And that means she has to stay in case she runs into him. And I just wrote in my notes that this is just such a convoluted way to get our main characters to stay.
Yeah.
Like,
I would almost rather if she was adamant that she had to stay to help Addie and Marisol.
Yeah.
But then I guess plot-wise, it wouldn't mean as much or something. But, like...
I know. That's like, I would have rathered maybe they were on their way out of town in a truck, and, like, maybe the truck broke down, so they're like, I guess we're not going anywhere, and that was the last ride out of town. Like, I feel like anything would be better than this convoluted thing.
Yes, I agree.
Anyway, so she tells Roman, after, like, they have the conversation and she shows him the letter and everything, she tells him that she wants him to evacuate with the town because he's injured, obviously, and he'll stay safe. But in his mind, if she stays, he's gonna stay. Like, obviously.
Yeah.
And, like,
it's the same as when she was going to the front. Like...
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm also just annoyed at her for choosing, like, they literally are engaged to be married. Mm-hmm. And, like, I understand your brother is, like, sort of your last family member, like, the last person you've left. But you say you love your husband, like, that sometimes requires sacrifices.
Well, and her brother chose to leave.
Yeah.
Yes, her whole point is to go find him, but he chose to fight. He chose to do this. And, like we've said, she's not in the army. She doesn't know how to fight. She doesn't, like, she's helped a bit, but she's not a doctor. She doesn't know how to, like, bandage people up and get them walking when a leg is blown off. Like, what can she do?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like she needed to make a better decision. I understand, like, loving your brother and wanting to find him, but I feel like she needed to make a better decision of, hey, this man that I'm about to, like, swear my life to and swear to be faithful and true to, you know, I feel like maybe she should have been like, this isn't the right time for me to find my brother.
Yeah, and she could even have been like, hey, Keegan, you see my brother? Tell him that I'm gone to...
Yeah, tell him I'm looking for him. Like, you know, tell him to write me. Anything.
Yeah. And, like, tell him that I'm at this place. Because, like, they have later on, they come up with a plan of where they would go. Like,
yeah.
Tell him to write me here or find me here.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not happy about it.
No.
So they head back to the B&B to clean up and wait for Marisol and Keegan and Addie to come back. And when they get back into the B&B, they notice that, like, some of the paper they were using to write their articles with was, like, blown onto the floor by the wind. And there are boot prints on the paper, and they sort of follow these, like, muddy boot prints through the open back door. And Iris notices that somebody has trampled through the garden that they made, like, ruining all their work. And Iris is just annoyed, and Roman's like, oh my god, somebody came in the house. So it's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
Let's maybe care a bit more about this plot point.
Yeah. So Iris is, like, annoyed and thinks that it was just somebody, like, maybe somebody, in all the panic of evacuating, somebody just someone being careless.
Mm-hmm.
So Iris goes out into the garden and tries her best to fix it up as best she can for, Marisol, because Marisol did the garden for Keegan, and she wanted it to look its best for when Keegan sees it for the first time. So Marisol, Keegan, and Addie come back and ask for the dash packs, and they all notice that there are only 2, even though Roman is 100% sure that there were 4, and he took 4 out of the closet.
Yeah.
Iris then shows Keegan, like, the boot print tells her that somebody had come in and, like stomped around in the garden. And Keegan recognizes it as a soldier's boot print and is annoyed because she said that her soldiers would not steal from a civilian. Like, she trained her soldiers better than that. But Marisol's like, it's no big deal. I've got lots of stuff here. I can easily make more dash packs, so I'll make more now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she would have needed to make another one for Keegan, too, I guess. Well, maybe not, because she's with the... I don't know. She probably would have, because it's her wife.
Yeah. So then the soldiers start prepping the town with barricades, and, like, everybody who's going to evacuate evacuates. And Iris helps by helping make barricades, like lugging furniture to make barricades, and also making meals for soldiers. She doesn't know how long they have before Dacre, like, attacks them, and she still hasn't had a chance to spread her mom's ashes. And so she asks Keegan and says, like, do I have time? And Keegan says that Dacre is probably going to march on their town in the morning, so go now, but take Roman. Mm-hmm. So she takes Roman and Addie to the field, you know, the one that is mentioned over and over again, and she lets her mom's ashes go in the breeze. So later, Keegan teaches Addie and Iris how to drive a truck, just in case they need to evacuate, and she wants them to be able to know how to drive. Addie does pretty good. Iris does real bad. And Keegan sort of just says that, like, the whole point of her teaching them how to drive is if things go badly, she wants them to take a car and escape with Marisol. And Keegan makes them swear it, that, like, no matter what, they will get Marisol out. And to go to Marisol's sister's house, who lives about 50 kilometers from Oath. So, after the driving lesson, they spend the rest of the day helping out until it's time to head home. For some reason, it's mentioned that Addie finds a stray cat and brings it home. Like, they're assuming that the cat was left behind in the evacuation. I'm not sure why this is important.
Yeah, other than, like, Roman's allergic to cats. I don't... Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't really get it, other than explaining that he's allergic to cats, but anyway. So,
yeah.
When they get back, Roman mentions casually that one of his jumpsuits is gone.
NBD.
Yeah. So, like, somebody's coming into their house, taking dash packs and one of Roman's jumpsuits, but this isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
So, Addie sort of pushes Iris to go get a shower because she smells. And, like, Iris is like, don't we have bigger things to worry about? And she's like, nope, go shower, use the shampoo, like, here. And when Iris gets out of the shower, Addie has, like, a clean jumpsuit and a flower and a bunch of flowers to make, like, a little flower crown for her. We obviously all see what's going on.
Yes.
And Addie tells her that at some point today, Roman has managed to ask her, Marisol, and Keegan for permission to marry her, and he's waiting for her right now in the garden. And then we go to Roman's point of view. So, like, well, we leave Addie to do Iris's hair and stuff. So then we go to Roman's point of view. He's waiting in the garden. He's super excited. And he sort of thought everyone would hate the idea when he suggested the marriage, like the wedding, thinking that everybody would be like, we have more important things to worry about. But everybody was super supportive of it, really liked the idea. And she comes out into the garden, and he starts to cry, seeing her and, like, thinking about their future together. And apparently he hasn't cried since his sister died, and he's, like, kept his emotions locked down. But now he's, like, letting everything go. They say very quick vows and exchange rings. Marisol had found, like, up in her jewelry box, a silver one that had belonged to her aunt for Iris and a copper one for Roman that just only fits his pinky. And, like, it's just sort of a, use these until you can get better ones.
Placeholders.
Yeah. So they kiss, and the ceremony is over. And that's it.
Fun times.
Yep. Marisol was nice enough to organize a dinner for them. It's just soup and bread, but, like, they cooked it for a bunch of the soldiers, so, like, there were soldiers coming into the house and just sort of felt, like, celebratory.
Yeah.
Roman, at the end of the night, Roman asks if she was ready for bed, but she's like, maybe we should help do the dishes. And, Marisol obviously she's like, no, you guys go enjoy your night. And Addie's like, Roman's room is all ready for you. So, like,
so icky.
Yeah, it is icky, because it's like, everybody, like, knows what's gonna happen, and it's just weird in a house full of people.
And, like, I get wedding nights are like that anyway. Like, most people assume after a wedding, people are going to go have sex.
Yeah.
But this just seems ickier to me.
Yeah. It's like everybody is, like, organizing it so that they, like,
can have the best sex.
Yeah. Anyway, so, like, they head upstairs, and, like, Roman is, like, slow going with his leg injury, and Iris can tell that he's hiding how much pain he's actually in. And they go into his room, and Addie lit, like, a ton of candles, and, like, there were flowers all over the floor, and flowers, like, sprinkled on the bed, and there were extra blankets. Like, they don't have mattresses still, but they just put, like, extra blankets on the floor, so it was, like, halfway comfortable.
I'm just like, it's all gonna get bloody.
Ew.
I can't. Sorry. It's just where my head goes.
Anyway, so they get, like, she's, like, super nervous, and I guess, like, he can sort of tell because he just asks her to, like, sit with him on their bed. And they get situated, and I guess they're just sort of, like, sitting, leaning up against a wall on the floor, really. Anyway, he asks her to read one of her letters. Like, I guess sort of I don't know if we want to call it, like, a tit for tat. Like, she asked him to read one of his letters, so now he wants her to read one of hers. And it's actually one that she sent him while they were both still in Oath, about, like, being vulnerable and having armor and taking it off for, like, just one person.
Yeah.
So she reads it, and then he asks her to read one more when Marisol knocked on the door and told them, and, like, first they're really nervous because they're like, oh my god, like, is Dacre here? Like, you know, what is going on? But then it's just Marisol being like, Keegan has ordered a no light order, so you gotta blow out the candles.
Yeah.
So they blow out all but one, and she reads a part that he wants her to read, and it's just a part talking about how she'll be back after the war, and she wants to see him and meet him. So they talk a little bit about how they make each other brave, and that they're better together. And it's, like, cavity inducing.
It's true.
And then they start kissing, and soon she's, like, straddling him because she's conscious of his leg, and he's taking off her jumpsuit, and then they're naked, and it's all euphemisms because it's YA, and so, like, I wrote a couple down because I thought they were just really funny. So I guess when he, like, goes inside of her for the first time, it's the discomfort sharpened but soon dulled. And then she felt full and complete. And then she had nearly reached the end of herself. And it was agony, it was bliss. So, like, there's no words like P or Vajee There's no, like... not even the O word.
Yeah.
It's all very, like, euphemism-y. And I get that this is what we're dealing with, but it is sort of like, ugh. And, like, I'm sorry, it was agony, it was bliss on both of their first time.
Yeah. I guess she's just happy to be in love.
I guess.
I don't know.
Anyway. Afterwards, they're, like, lying together, and he sort of tells her that tomorrow, no matter what happens, they have to stay together. And Iris agrees.
Sorry.
I know. It's just like, it's just eye rolls and eye rolls and eye rolls.
Good times. Love the YA. So the next morning, Iris wakes up, and it is unnaturally cold. And we've heard this before, like, when the Ethrals were coming, it got unnaturally cold. So we're like, cool, that's clearly what is happening. She immediately looks out Roman's window, and you're like, that is not what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to make movement that's visible when it's like this, but okay. But she does look out the window, and she can't see any soldiers, and they're supposed to be guarding, like, this side of town. So she starts yelling at Kit to get up, but he gets, like, very distracted by her naked body, which I do kind of love this moment, because they're both just there naked, and, like, do we have time?
I think they could have had time.
Yeah, like, what else are they gonna do? Sit in silence with other people? May as well just have another ride.
Yeah.
Anyway. But
and especially, like, it's their first time. So, like...
Yeah.
Like...
And last.
I just feel like they probably could have, like... It would have been quick. You know what I mean? Like, they haven't gotten that far yet where he can last, like, ages and ages and ages.
Yeah, especially if he's already, like, this distracted by her body, and he's like, yeah, he wouldn't last all night.
No.
Yeah, I agree. I think they should have just made it happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, they don't. I think if it was an adult or an NA book, they would have. So she grabs their clothes, and she pulls him up, and she gets distracted by his body in this moment. And she's like, he's perfect and naked, and they're both just like, I wish they just went for it, but instead they, like, help each other dress and are, like, sickly sweet again, and I'm like, just fuck. But, you know. So they end up going downstairs and go to the kitchen because obviously Ethrals are in town. A bomb goes off and shakes the house, and, like, they were standing in the kitchen, but, like, it makes Iris fall to her knees, and Roman just, like, sits behind her and starts, like, holding her, because, like, she probably has some also PTSD from the front lines and the explosion there. So they're kind of just cuddling and praying that everything will be all right. Iris can see Addie nearby, but she can't see Marisol at the moment. And then another bomb goes off, and it drops even closer, and she worries that, like, the B&B is gonna collapse, and she, like, starts holding Addie's hand, so they're all just, like, huddling together, hoping for the best. Marisol shows up, and she's in a red dress, and I completely forgot about this until this moment, but it's just kind of interesting. Like, she's dressed up to die. It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't... What's with the dress?
Like, is it going to come up in the next book? Like, I feel like the cat and the dress have to come up again, or why were they brought up now? We'll see. But Marisol has the dash packs, and she tells Iris that she has faith that the B&B will not fall with her inside of it. And it kind of makes me wonder if there's, like, a magic-y thing going on there, but, like, I don't know what, and, you know, who knows? Magic, I don't really understand it in this world, but I do feel like there's something.
Yeah.
The bombs end up stopping, and the air warms up, so they know that the Ethereals are likely gone. Marisol tells them to stay here, and she'll be back. But Addie realizes that they promised that they'd watch Marisol, stay with her, and if things went to shit, they would get her the fuck out. They promised Keegan they would do it. So she's like, shit, we have to keep Marisol in our view. So they leave and basically go after Marisol up to the hill that Iris and Roman used to run on. And Iris kind of looks around at the bombing, and it seems to have a pattern to it. Like, there are buildings that weren't bombed that seem like they're in lines together, and it kind of makes me wonder if there's, like, ley lines that protected houses, and that's why the B&B was safe. There's just so many little things that I'm like, this could be explained by magic, and then I just don't know. I guess really need to read the second book, but I do wonder if it even comes back. So they're on this hill, and there's devastation all around them. There's injured all around them. So Iris starts tending to a wounded man, or like she starts tending to the wounded, but the first person she actually checks is a man, and he is already dead. Yikes. Then there's a woman nearby with her legs splintered, and she's struggling to get up, and Iris is like, you can't stand, and tries to tell her to lie back and make her comfortable. Roman comes up and tells Iris that, like, this woman is losing too much blood. He does tie off her leg with a belt, and Iris tries to go to find a stretcher so that they can kind of, like, get her out of there. Mm-hmm. So she tries to pull apart a piece from a barricade, and she doesn't notice when it gets cold again. But then somebody shouts for everybody to get down. And she's like, shit. So the Ethereals are back. She looks around, and there are injured people everywhere. And Roman was on his way to her. But they're both just standing facing each other and frozen. Because they can't move. So yeah, they're just looking at each other. There's an injured boy next to Iris who is moaning for his mother and, like, crawling around and moving and clearly in shock. And Iris, like, tries to tell him to stay down and be quiet, but, like, he can't comprehend it because he's not in that headspace right now. Yeah. He doesn't get that they're in danger. Yeah. Iris thinks, like, this is the end. Yeah. Like, this is it. The Ethereals are coming, and this guy is moving. We're all going to die. Obviously, she's still looking at Roman, and she's thinking, like, the future that they had planned is no more. And she thinks that, like, she hopes he can feel her love from this distance between them. And she sees something silver falling from the sky between them. And I was like, oh shit, they're actually going to get blown up. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I actually did think that was what was going to happen. But first, Iris's life kind of flashes before her eyes, I guess. So the first thing is it's her birthday, and her nan is giving her the typewriter. And her nan asks her to write a story. And then she's with her brother at the riverbank, and he holds something out to her and tells her to close her eyes, and she asks why, but she trusts him. And it's a snail, and she names it Morgie, I think. And I think she told Roman about the snail before, so it's like a moment with her brother. Yeah. And then she sees her mother at the diner, and her mother asks her if she's working on an assignment, but she's trying to write a story for her nan, and she's kind of struggling. But her mother tells her, like, this is a perfect spot to do it. Like, you can people watch, and that's how you can get ideas. So it's like a important moment with her mother. Yeah. And then she sees Roman, and they're in a garden, and she's never seen it before. yes, they're weeding, and Roman throws dirt at her, and she says she just washed the dress, and he says it looks better off anyway, and like keeps throwing dirt at her, and she tackles him and straddles his hips, and asks how he'll pay for this, and like it's kind of like an idea of what I guess their future could be, and what she was, I guess, hoping for. All of this happened so fast. She's still waiting for the bomb to fall, and she's seeing memories, and she thinks of this future, and as she's looking at him, she thinks he sees the same future she does in that moment. And I'm like, does he? Is this magic? I need to know.
I don't think this is magic. I think this is just her, like, having her life flash before her eyes sort of a moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish it was magic, but I don't think it is.
I don't either, but, like, when there's magic in a book, I'm like, everything is magic. It has to be.
Yeah.
And in this book, it seems like nothing is.
Yeah. It's weird.
It is weird. So, the bomb hits the ground, and it rolls near the soldier that was crawling and calling for his mother. And Iris looks at it, and it's a metal canister. It's not a bomb like she expected it to be. And the ethereals are actually dropping them all over, not just this one spot where they saw somebody move. So she's wondering what it is. Everybody basically starts moving because these canisters are everywhere. Yeah. You're not really safe anywhere. So Roman comes towards her, and then I guess the canisters all open, and there's gas everywhere, and it starts burning, and she can't see Roman anymore, and she starts yelling for him, but as she's like opening her mouth and gas is getting in her lungs, she can't breathe, so she falls to her knees. She crawls away from where the gas is and gets to fresh air, and it's warmer over there, and she like coughs and spits out blood, and she thinks she should be helping people get out of the gas, so she tries to stand up, but she can't. A soldier who I guess was near her when the gas started crawls by her and tells her she has to keep going, and she doesn't think she can, but then the wind starts bringing the gas towards her again, so she won't, soon enough she'll be back in the gas again, so she has to get herself up, and she runs until she falls, and then she crawls until she can get up again, and she runs again, and like it's real bad.
Yeah, it's just very chaotic.
Yes. And she kind of knows, like, she needs to find Addie, Marisol, and Kit, because this is the time that they are supposed to get into a lorry and get the fuck out of there. Yeah. She actually magically sees Marisol and Addie going towards the lorry, but then somebody grabs her arm hard enough to bruise, and they're wearing, like, a helmet and a gas mask, but she sees the uniform and knows that it is Kit. Really? We're gonna do this? We're gonna fucking do this? Fine.
It's like everybody forgot that one of his uniforms was stolen.
Right? Really? This is how we're gonna play this? Cool. So, she's happy that Kit found her and magically got a helmet and gas mask. Mm-hmm. So she gives him a hug, and he hands her a gas mask, and she obviously puts it on, but Kit sounds really robotic and odd. And she's like, nah, must be the gas mask. Cool. What? Okay. So he tells her that they need to go, and he starts to actually lead her away from the lorry and back into the street of gas. So if they didn't have gas masks on, they'd be fucked. But she's kind of trying to pull away, and she's like, no, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be helping people, even though her original plan was we need to go back to the lorry. She's kind of all over the place, which is fair. It's chaotic and fucked up situation. But he's literally dragging her, and she's like, no, wait, I need to stop. Like, I don't know what's going on. And he tells her that, like, it's not safe, they need to keep going, not to look behind her. But then she knows she needs to look behind her because she sees somebody coming towards them. So she's done with being dragged, and she, like, rips her hand away and pulls off of her mask, and it's actually Roman running towards her, and he's screaming her name, and he is completely covered in blood, and he stumbles towards her. So who's with her if he was behind her?
I don't know.
Right? So she runs towards Roman, but the stranger grabs her, and Roman actually collapses, and the wall of gas is still moving towards them. And they're actually in the field now, the field where everything happens and where her mother's ashes are, the field. Mm-hmm. But Roman gets up and starts coming towards her again, but he's, like, in real bad condition. Like, it's not going well. The stranger that is with her shakes her and tells her to stop fighting and calls her Little Flower. And she's like, oh shit, it's my brother. So he tells her he's there to keep her safe, but she says they need to get Kit. But he says it's too late for him. But she obviously isn't going to leave her husband, and she says that. So she pulls away from Forrest, and she screams for Kit, but he must have fallen down again, and she thinks he must be crawling because she can see, like, the grass moving and see, like, he's coming towards her, basically. And then Forrest puts his hand to her neck, and she thinks, my brother is about to kill me. And she sees Roman rise, and he's like 5 meters away, and he's bleeding from his chin, and he can barely stand. And he almost gets to her, and she reaches out for him, but Forrest pulls her back, and she passes out from his hand around her neck, basically. And then the gas actually reaches Roman as she passes out, so you're like, great, this is ideal. This is gonna go well.
Yeah.
So she wakes up and she has a headache. And she's in a forest. And the first thing she asks for is Kit. But Forrest comes into her view and gives her water. And she starts to remember what happened. She asks Forrest where her husband is. And he says he saw Kit shouting for her in the market. So he basically, in this moment, tells her that he's just been watching them for days. I guess. Like, since Keegan showed up, basically, like, he's been there just watching them. And you're like, what? Why didn't you...
Like, I just don't understand why he had to be so secretive about it.
Yeah, wouldn't you have wanted to get her out of here before now? Like, why did you wait until the chaos? Like, it's just so odd.
Like, I just don't understand why he couldn't have just, like, come up to the house one day and, like, one afternoon just knocked on the door and been like, hey, like, and, like, explain what was going on.
Yeah. And then, like, she wouldn't have stayed for the hope of seeing him. She would have left with him and her injured husband, and they all would have been fine.
Yeah.
It's just so odd. So she obviously asks why he didn't let Kit come with him, but he says it was too much of a liability, and he could only get her out. And he calls her Little Flower again, and she tells him not to, and she starts to walk. She says to the west. I don't know how she knows which way she's going, but sure. But he obviously stops her.
I would not know.
I know. I'd be like, I need to climb a tree to figure out where I am, and then I'd try to climb a tree and end up hurting myself.
Amazing.
But she tells him she needs to go back for Kit, but he says Dacre will have taken over Avalon Bluff by now, and he'll either be a prisoner or he's dead, basically. But she keeps walking, And she ends up tripping over Marisol's stolen dash packs. So she realizes that Forrest stole the dash packs and Roman's jumpsuit, and she is pissed about it. But you're like, obviously, what did you expect here? He actually agrees to go with her to the field and search for Kit, but he won't let her go into the town. And once they have searched, she has to agree to go home with him. So she's like, yes, I know Roman's still in the field waiting. I'll agree to that. So they walk back, and it's nighttime now. So, like, either she's been passed out for a real long time, or he dragged her real far into the woods.
Yeah.
Or I guess they must have just waited, but, like, it seems like the day just flew by. But the gas is all gone, and Dacre and his army I don't know what he's doing, but they're all celebrating, and Forrest agrees to crawl into the grass with her because, like, if they walk through the grass and are seen, they will be killed. So he's like, we need to be very quiet and very stealthy. So they crawl through it together, and she ends up cutting up her hands, and it takes ages to get to the space where she knows that he is. And eventually they do, and he isn't there. There's just a lot of blood. And yeah, it's not great. But Forrest tells her that they have to go, and he says that Kit is gone. And there's like a circle around where Roman was lying, and we don't really know what that means, but Forrest like tries to pull her away, and he tells her he knows more than she does, and that Kit is gone. And she's like, what do you mean?
He just, I feel like he's being so fucking condescending.
So condescending.
And it's
like,
really
you wouldn't
bothering
understand
me.
anything. Like, what?
It's like,
tell her.
He has no idea what she's been dealing with since he's been gone. She literally had to deal with the death of their mother alone. Like,
yeah.
She literally had to deal with, like, getting a job and putting food on the table alone. Then she had to deal with being on the front lines, like, and I just,
Yeah.
A part of me is like, I hope he gets what's coming to him, because he is, I'm so mad about it.
Yeah. Like, obviously he went through hard shit, but, like, he decided to go. What did he think war was going to be?
Yeah.
And, like, obviously other shit happened, but, like, yeah, it's not great. So she's obviously like, what do you mean? Because that's just something to say. But he is just like, nope. Like, you promised to leave after we came and checked. We can't go into the town. This is it. And she asks if Forrest thinks that Roman is in Avalon Bluff, but he says, no, he's not there. And they start to hear some gunfire and laughing, and she has no choice but to kind of like agree to go back with him. So they crawl back to the forest. That night they camp deep in the woods, and they have a fire, and Iris needs answers. So she asks where Kit is, but Forrest refuses to tell her about it. And he says, like, this is not the place, and, like, this is war, and he saved her because she was all he cares about and all he could manage. And he says, this isn't a novel with a happy ending. Which is just another, like, fourth wall thing that you're like, yeah, obviously it's not a novel with a happy ending author. But she all she can see in her head is Roman crawling towards her.
Yeah.
And she wants to, like, keep her emotions down, but she just starts weeping. And her brother doesn't comfort her at all. And she says he just witnesses her pain. And it kind of makes me sad for her. And she also says he feels like a stranger, which is obviously also sad. So it kind of goes on like this. She can tell he's paranoid about something. Like, when they're traveling the next day, refuses to go to the road. He gets up early each morning and they have to be moving. Like, there's a lot of paranoia here.
Yeah.
She asks him where his platoon is, and something finally clicks with her in the fact that he, like, stole Kit's jumpsuit. That, like, he's a deserter. Like, you can't just leave your platoon. But he finally answers that his whole platoon is dead. And then he kind of just won't talk about it anymore. So she starts thinking, like, he must be talking about his first platoon that she had heard about. Everybody in it had died. So it's kind of a bit odd because she's like, well, what about the second platoon he was placed with? I don't really get it. So she, obviously, he won't talk to her, so she's thinking about Marisol and Addie, and she thinks, like, they must have gotten out, but obviously she doesn't know about Keegan or Roman, if either of them are okay. During their travels, like, one night, she goes to get some extra firewood so that the fire will keep going, and Forrest just watches her the entire time, thinking that she's gonna run away from him. So it's like, there's not a lot of trust here. It's not great.
But, like, there shouldn't be trust.
No. Also, if I were her, I would have left him.
Yeah.
But
I'm so mad.
It's all she has left. I also would have demanded for answers. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not walking one step further with you until you fucking explain what the hell is going on. But, anyway. In her head, she starts writing letters to Kit, telling him that she went back to look for him, and she only found traces of his blood and a circle in the dirt, and she feels like he is safe, but she's afraid she'll never see him again. And she hopes that maybe some magic will bring these words to him, and she will find him whenever she can. So, sad, sad times. And we don't know if the magic will connect them somehow. I doubt it. On their, like, 4th day of traveling, they end up near a road, but Forrest, like, pulls them back into the middle of the forest. And that night, she can actually see patches of blood on Forrest's uniform. And she's like, holy shit, you're bleeding. And he says he's fine and it'll stop in a moment and that the wounds are actually old. So she ends up getting him some food, and as she's, like, giving him the food, she notices her mother's locket around his neck.
Ooh.
Which is interesting. So she asks where he found it, and she kind of realizes, like, he must have been fighting for Dacre to have come across it, because she lost it and they were she was in the last lorry to leave. So if he were part of the defense,
yeah,
she would have seen him.
She lost it at the front lines.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, obviously if he were fighting for Enva at the time, he would have been among the people in the lorry that she was in. To have found the locket. So
yes,
'tis bad. So she asks why, and he just says she doesn't understand and walks away. And I'm just like, why are we being an emo boy here? Like, just fucking talk to her.
Like, I don't understand. They were like, is he mad that she's married, like, and that she's putting someone else first? Like, did he think that he would find her, like, waiting for him at home? I don't understand what he was expecting.
Me neither. Like, I really just don't get it. And why be a dick? Why?
Yeah.
There's no need.
Like, her husband is literally possibly dead. Like, have a little bit of empathy.
Yeah. So, but he has none. He's just like, oh, as long as she is physically alive.
That's all I care about.
Yeah. And, like, clearly there's going to be a lot of emotionally and mentally bad things after this if she just watched her husband whatever it is that he's not telling her. It's just bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's just on her own again. Her brother's not talking to her. So she writes, I'll say in quotation mark, to Kit again in her head. And she says she should have known it wasn't him.
Yeah, probably.
And we're like, yes, obviously. And she says she shouldn't have taken the mask, that she should have let one of the soldiers have it, and that she should have looked back, and that she is broken now. Which is not surprising. I guess the next morning, Forrest washes his jumpsuit, and she sees the 3 wounds that he has, and she can actually see, like, that they are old, they shouldn't have bled last night, and that one wound was just below his heart, one was in his liver, and the other was, like, in his intestines. And
how does she know where his liver is?
Listen, I don't know.
I don't even know where my liver is. Just that it's in my torso.
Yeah. I have no idea. I guess she helped at the hospital for 5 minutes and learned all this.
Yeah.
But she says, or she thinks, like, they were fatal. Like, he should not have lived through those wounds. So that's interesting. So she, in her head, again, writes to Kit, and she says she says the things that she never told him. She says, like, she's happy he was Carver. She loved their runs that they went on. How she never thanked him for jumping over a grenade for her. And how she never actually told him that she loved him. Which I didn't actually realize that until this moment. But that sucks a lot.
Yeah.
So her and Forrest actually end up getting back to Oath by train. And they go to their house. And before they go inside, she's like, shit, I need to tell you something. And he's like, what? And she says that their mother is dead. And that's why she left Oath in the first place. He hugs her then.
He's
which
not
I
telling,
think is like...
He's not telling her shit, so she shouldn't have to tell him shit.
Yeah. I know. But I think she's like, I don't want to go in and him be like, where's mom? So, like, I get it. But he does hug her then. But he, like, has no empathy or emotion or anything in this moment that makes him seem like a real person. And, like, obviously he's overstimulated and, like, everything is awful. But he's being a dick.
Well, story of his life.
Yeah.
He abandoned her for war, abandoned her husband, and now is being a dick about telling her shit. Yeah.
And he's like, let's go home. And she's just like, this doesn't feel like home. Like, this doesn't feel good to her.
Yeah.
But they go inside, and he's surprised the electricity is off. And you're like, you're so out of touch. Like, what did you expect to happen? Why would she leave the electricity on if she was gone anyway?
Yeah.
But
I'm surprised they got to keep the apartment.
Yeah, it must have been, like, paid for. Like, there's, like, they must have... I don't understand. I don't get it. Maybe she was sending money back because, like, the correspondents do make more money, so maybe. I guess. But she basically tells him, like, where the candles are, and they, like, end up sitting in the living room. And he finally tells her anything at all. But he says he found her locket in the trenches when he was with Dacre's army, and it took everything in him to break away from Dacre's command. And in the moment that he found it and that he broke away from the command, he made it his mission to find her. And he said it was surprisingly easy. And he stayed on the outskirts, and he watched her, and he saw her and Kit together, and he knows he means a lot to her. So feel worse. Feel bad at all. Apologize to her.
Yeah.
But he says it took everything in him to save her and defy Dacre. So that's all he could do. And she asks, like, so it wasn't your choice to fight with Dacre? Because, like, what the fuck? And he tells her, like, he was wounded and he was going to die and he could not be evacuated from the town that the army said he was evacuated from. But, like, he was too injured to be evacuated. Which is interesting because I'm like, who wrote that letter to her?
Yeah.
Like, is there a big old cover-up going on with the army? Like
a conspiracy.
Yeah, I wonder what is actually happening. But anyway, he says he was too injured to be evacuated, so he was there when Dacre's army came, and Dacre himself actually healed Forrest and made him fight for his army. So,
like, is it like some sort of compulsion, I guess?
It must be, because he said, like, it took everything in him to break away from Dacre's command. So, like, it must be some type of magic compulsion-y thing to make them fight. But it goes back to Kit's article at the beginning of, like, people disappearing. So it's not surprising that Dacre's army is taking over places and doing well if they just, like, keep taking over people to make them fight for him.
Yeah.
So she then worries about Kit, obviously, and him being taken by Dacre too. And Forrest says he needs her to stay and she can't leave him.
Ugh.
And
this is emotional manipulation.
Yes, 100%. And he
at
literally
its finest.
Yeah. He makes her promise to stay here where it's safe. And she just agrees. And I'm like, I would not make a single fucking promise to this asshole.
Nope. Me neither.
She does. So Forrest lies on the couch and she goes to her room and she tries not to worry about Kit being, like, taken by Dacre, obviously, because that is the worry now. And Forrest, for some reason, didn't tell her anything about this circle. But clearly he knows what it means. Anyway. But she actually sees a piece of paper on the floor. And it's Kit's letter from before she left. And she... Like, we talked about it at the time. We were like, what the fuck? You should have taken it.
What does that letter say? The one where she was like, I'm leaving. And then she heard him respond and was like, I'm not going to answer it because he's just going to try and convince me not to go. And I need to go. Yeah.
So she sees it and she just wants to burn it, but she can't make herself do that. So she actually opens it. And it just says, it's me, Kit. And you're like, fuck. Why didn't she take it with her? But anyway, that's basically the end of the book. There is an epilogue, but it's not in her point of view. So, like, that is the last we see of her and Kit. Great.
Which is nothing.
Yeah, it's like a punch in the face. I'm like, good job. So, to the epilogue now, it's in actually Dacre's point of view, which I kind of found interesting. Like, I get throughout the book, they were like, he's a real entity. Like, he's real. He has a point. He could have a point of view. But I was just kind of surprised. I kind of just thought that he would be above having a point of view in a book. I don't know. A god and all. But anyway, so he is approaching Avalon Bluff as the gas is dissipating. And he thinks that the gas is green like the emeralds on his fingers and like Enva's eyes. And you're like, okay. Like, he's in love with Enva, I guess. Like, cool. He also thinks that the mortals did well with this weapon. So, I'm assuming that this is the weapon that the Littles developed. And that was in his father's office.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because she said it wasn't bombs.
Yeah.
And that she'd explain everything once they were married. So, this is his father's fault, which kind of makes it ironic.
Worse.
And I don't think it's actually irony. I think that's just a saying that I use. But it makes it, it's his father's fault what ends up happening in this section. Sorry. But Dacre thinks to himself that, like, he's not going to ruin this town. You're like, That's a good
nice.
sign, I guess.
Yeah. Way to go.
So he sends his men ahead to scout the town for people. And he, in his head, says, like, the secret is the will needs to still be present in the person, and that ice serves him best, but sometimes fire will surprise him. And you're kind of like, what the fuck is he talking about? But it's like, he's looking into people's souls and their will and, like, if they still have fight in them type of thing. Fine. Yeah. So he actually ends up walking to the field, which is the field, and he feels the soul that is a cold, deep spirit of ice. And he finds a young man crawling through the field, and this young man only has 1 minute and 13 seconds left to live.
Yikes. That's very exact.
Yeah. And Dacre is in a good mood, I guess because of this weapon, but one of his servants comes to him and tells him that they secured the town, but some of the lorries escaped. So, like, that tells us Marisol and Addie probably did get away, so we're happy about that. Normally, Dacre would lose his shit over this, but he just says, so be it. And they're like, oh shit, that's surprising.
Yeah.
Dacre then tells this servant guy that he's choosing this one. And he thinks, like, this mortal will do well in his army, and he tells the guy to take him below, and this servant opens a portal in the ground by drawing a circle and takes this mortal below. And Dacre thinks it'll be nice because he's never had a correspondent before. So I guess, like, he usually takes soldiers. So, like, this is his first correspondent. And we're like, we didn't really need that confirmation. But, like, obviously, this is Kit.
Yeah. But also, like, what... I don't understand what Dacre expects a correspondent to do. Like, what... How is he supposed to be useful?
I guess he'll write for Dacre's side. Like, I don't know. But he's gonna, I guess, save his life, which we're happy about that part, because otherwise he was gonna die in a minute. So I guess it's better that he's alive. There's at least a chance that someone can take him out of this command, like Forrest got out of it. So there's some hope-ish.
I guess.
And yeah. And then Dacre looks to the east, to the path that will lead him to Enva. And that is where this book ends. So.
Yikes.
Yeah. Lots happening.
So I don't know if Iris is actually Enva now. Yes. Like, the ending has sort of, like, I was convinced that she was, like, the reincarnation of Enva. But actually, do you know who I think could be reincarnated Enva?
Marisol?
No, Addie.
Okay.
Because remember, like, Enva... Yeah, the whole music thing.
Yeah.
That's really that's the only piece I got.
Yeah. The only reason I said Marisol is because she wore a red dress. So, like, during a war attack. Well, yeah. So, like, there's not much evidence to either of it. But, yeah. I feel like everything in this book, every little tidbit that we got was for a reason. Like, we talked about, I can't remember, maybe the second week or something, we talked about how we got that moment with Kit and his dad and him being like, I'm not marrying her, just so that we could see the canisters in his office for this moment later on, where the gas went off and then Dacre says he's happy with the weapon. That's the reason we got that moment. But then we didn't get an even more important moment of him telling his father that he wasn't going to marry her and to fuck off. We didn't get that, which was weird. So I'm kind of two minds. Like, I'm like, I like Easter egging in books. I like kind of showing where the plot's going to go and giving hints and stuff and trying to decipher them. But I don't want everything to be part of the, like, manipulation of it. Like, I want there to be other moments in the book. Like, it just feels very evident in this book that things are in there, peppered in, so that you'll connect it later. And I'm like, I don't know. I felt like there was too much of it for me.
Yeah, it's almost like they were trying to make it Easter eggy, but then, like, didn't think about the rest of it. Like, didn't think of it as, like, a story first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'd agree with that, because it's like what we said. Like, I wanted the conversation between Kit and his father. But, like, It feels like maybe that was cut on the editing floor because the other conversation was more important. But, like, to me, that conversation was more important to Kit's character development. And I feel like we cut that in favor of having a Easter egg for the plot.
Yeah.
But then it makes me wonder, like, the red dress, the story about Addie playing music, this cat, like, why are they in there?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But I will say, I really liked the writing, like the way things were described and like the eloquence to the letters between them. Like, I liked the writing a lot in this book.
Yeah, I think the writing was well done. I think parts of the story were almost like attempting, like, almost like your eyes are too big for your belly sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, trying to make this, like, epic romance and, like, maybe, like, trying too hard to make it more epic than it is.
Yeah, which we've kind of talked about a few times about, like, the magic system I don't get. Like, what is magic? What's not? Is there more magic than we're seeing? Because there doesn't seem to be that much magic. And if that's the case, that's fine. But it isn't, like, an epic fantasy world. It's more like the normal world with, like, a cool grocery store.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, why bother having magic at all if it's not gonna have a purpose?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this could have easily, like, just because we have gods and goddesses doesn't necessarily mean that magic has to be involved.
Or it could just be, like, only the gods and goddesses have magic.
Yeah.
Because, like, why does this random store, why did these random houses not get? Like, I just, you know, it's just interesting. Anyway, any other thoughts on the book?
Overall, I did like it. Like, and I did order the second one.
Mm-hmm.
So I do plan on reading it. So, like, I guess it got me enough that way. But I do find that, like, there are some inconsistencies and some sort of inaccuracies that I'm struggling with a little bit.
Yeah, and, like, I think some of it will get figured out in the next book. It kind of has to, but I guess we'll see for sure.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, there are some things where you bring up answers in that book, and then there are some that you can sort of float along, and I just feel like maybe some of the answers that are not in this book should have been given in this book.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still, like, the big mystery is, where is Enva? Is she aware that any of this is happening? Is she gone somehow? Like, is she actually getting people to fight for her using compulsion herself? Like, there's so many questions around that I'm like, yeah. I don't get it. But yeah, I have the second book too. I guess likely we'll have maybe do it on the podcast at some point if people are interested in us doing that. So definitely let us know if you've read the second book and enjoyed it, because we can do it on the podcast at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's it for this book and this week and this month.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I don't want to leave thinking that, like, I'm shitting on it too much. I'm not. I liked it. I ordered the second book. I'm gonna read the second book. It's good for a YA. Like, it's cute.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not super upset about it.
No. And, like, I agree completely. There's just a few, like, we go in deep on books. So, like, obviously there's going to be little things that we pick apart. That doesn't mean we didn't like the book as a whole. Because, like, I did like the book. I got through it fast. Like we said, once we were in the second, like, the end of it.
Second half, yeah.
I was like, oh, I need to read this because I need to know what's happening. Like, I can't take notes on it. So, yeah. But, yeah. If you do want to get in touch with us about this book, any book, or anything at all, you can reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread and TikTok at coffee.coread.
Yeah, so next week we will be reading a new book. We are going back to one of our favorite series of all time. That is the TOG series by Sarah J. Maas. We are reading book 4, which is Queen of Shadows, which is my personal favorite. So we will be reading chapters 1 to 14, so make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.